My daughter scoffed, casually dropping a sentence as if it were the most obvious truth in the world. My mother-in-law built everything with her own two hands, completely different from you. I looked her straight in the eye and replied, my voice calm to the point of being cold. Then from now on, I'll stop paying your bills. Let's see how much she can help you. Alicia stood frozen like a statue. And then she asked again, her voice trembling as if she had misheard. What bills, Mom? I was sitting in my familiar armchair, the cushion long worn out. Not that Alicia ever cared enough to replace it. My hands shook slightly as I lifted my glass of water. On the table sat the white ceramic dinnerware set I had given my daughter 10 years ago on her wedding day. In the kitchen, the smell of garlic and tomatoes was filling the air, rich and fragrant. But my stomach was empty, not from hunger, but because a huge lump was pressing at my throat, threatening to choke me. Alicia sat across from me, wearing that mocking smile I knew far too well. The kind of smile she had even as a little girl, every time she thought she had won an argument. Beside her was Mark, her husband, head down, staring at his plate as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. My two grandchildren, Sam and Sanaa, were still glued to their phones, completely oblivious to how the air in the room had grown so heavy it was almost suffocating. Then Alicia spoke, her voice dripping with contempt, as if she were lecturing me on a lesson I was required to memorize. You need to understand something. Serena built everything from nothing. She started her cosmetics company from scratch, traveled all over the world, and raised Mark. She's not like you, depending on Dad and then just existing. Just existing. Those two words dropped straight into my heart like a heavy stone, falling into a bottomless pit. My face burned hot, my eyes stung, but I did not cry. Not in front of her, not after everything I had done. I drew a deep breath, silently counted to 3. Then I spoke, calm and cold, like someone who had just woken up from a long sleep. I understand. I set my napkin down on the table, slowly, very slowly. If Serena is that accomplished, then let her help you from now on. Alicia frowned. What are you talking about? I did not blink. I'm going to stop paying your bills. Those words fell heavily, each one like a stone being thrown onto the surface of still water. Tuition for the kids, the car loan, health insurance, the gym membership, the payments on the apartment at the Heights, everything. Let Serena help you. The silence that followed was suffocating. Mark lifted his head, eyes wide. Sam put his phone down. Sanaa stared at me as if she had just realized something serious had shifted in this family. As for Alicia, her face had gone pale. Mom. She swallowed hard. What bills are you talking about? What bills? That question was the last drop that made the glass overflow. My 45-year-old daughter, with a master's degree in business administration, with a husband and 2 teenage children, had absolutely no idea how much I had been carrying for her all these years. She had no concept of the burden I had borne, month after month, while she praised her mother-in-law and belittled her own mother. I slowly stood up, picked up my old brown leather bag, the one that had followed me through so many years, worn and frayed but still sturdy, just like me. I looked straight into Alicia's eyes. There was no anger there, only disappointment, and something she had not yet recognized: resolve. You'll find out, I said softly, each word heavy as stone. Ask the bank, or ask Serena. I left the apartment at the Heights without looking back. The sound of my footsteps echoed steadily down the hallway, firm and unwavering. As the elevator doors slid shut, I could still hear Alicia calling after me. Mom, wait! But I did not wait. Not this time. That night, I drove back to my home in Pearland, the house I had built brick by brick with my own sweat and tears. And in that moment, I realized something so clear it chilled me. Being invisible does not mean being weak. And when an invisible woman finally decides to speak up, the whole world will tremble. My name is Pauline Rivers. I am 68 years old. My hands are calloused from a lifetime of work, but my heart, though covered in scars, still beat strong. That dinner was not an ending. It was a beginning. For 20 years, I had built a castle for my daughter to live in without ever realizing that I myself was the foundation beneath her feet. Do you want to know why Alicia's words cut me so deeply? Because my daughter never truly knew who her mother was. No one did. I had been silent in my sacrifices for so long that even the child I gave birth to believed her mother simply existed. Let me tell you the truth. If you have ever been belittled by the very person you love most, simply because they have no idea what you have been quietly carrying, then you will understand why I could not turn back one more time. And in the next part, I will tell you about the day I became a widow at 35, and the moment I stood in front of a mountain of debt big enough to crush a woman. Do not go away, because that is where everything truly begins. I was 35 when Dwight, my husband, died. Alicia was only 12. That morning it was drizzling, the kind of weather that felt like the sky itself was trying to warn us that something terrible was about to happen. Dwight left early to make deliveries. We had a small stationery store in the East End of Houston. It wasn't big, it wasn't flashy, but it was ours. It was sweat, it was hope. It was all those days the two of us worked ourselves to the bone, believing that if we just pushed a little harder, life would finally open up. 2 hours later, I received the phone call that split my life into two halves. An accident. The truck brakes failed. Dwight did not make it. I still remember that funeral as a carving that will never fade. The coffin was closed. The thick scent of white flowers made it hard to breathe. Alicia clung to me, her tears soaking the black dress I wore, and I just stood there, unable to cry. Not because I did not want to, but because I was afraid. Afraid that if I started crying at that moment, I would never be able to stop. People looked at me with pity in their eyes. Poor Pauline. How will she live now? A single woman with a child and no real career. No real career. As if running a household, raising a child, and keeping a small business alive day after day was not work. As if these hands of mine had never touched sweat. As if my nights had never been drained dry by worry. A week after the funeral, Dwight's accountant came with a thick stack of files. Debt, unpaid rent for the storefront, outstanding bills. I stared at the numbers and read, negative $34,800, and I thought, either collapse or get up. I chose to get up. That night, I sat alone in the living room, lit only by the dim glow of a desk lamp, like a flame about to go out. In my hands was Dwight's ledger, the numbers blurring because of the tears I could no longer hold back, negative $34,800. At that moment, that figure looked like a monster with its mouth wide open, ready to swallow the future of Alicia and me whole. But then I lifted my head and looked toward my daughter's room. Her pink nightlight glowed faintly through the crack under the door. Inside, Alicia was fast asleep, hugging the stuffed bear Dwight had given her for her birthday the year before. And I remembered what Dwight had said the day before he died. It wasn't any sort of final message, just a casual sentence over dinner. But it became the anchor that kept me tied to life. You know what, Pauline? What I'm proudest of isn't the store. It's watching Alicia grow up every day. You've done so well. She's going to succeed. Trust me. I bit my lip hard so I wouldn't break down sobbing. Darling, I whispered into the night, I won't let her down. I promise. The next morning, I got up at 5, took a shower, put on the neatest clothes I had left, and walked straight to the store as if stepping into a battle I was not allowed to lose. I started learning how to negotiate with suppliers, learning how to make Excel spreadsheets, learning how to get up at 5 in the morning to check inventory before Alicia woke up for school. My hands grew hard and rough from lifting boxes. My back ached constantly, but I did not stop. Why? Because every morning, looking at my daughter in her school uniform, eating a simple breakfast, I would remind myself of just one thing. She will have a better life than I did. She will go further than I ever could. And she did. At least, that's what I once believed. I know by now you might be wondering, how can a woman who just lost her husband and inherited a mountain of debt manage to get back on her feet so quickly? I asked myself that too. But sometimes we do not stand up because we are strong. We stand up because if we do not, the child we love most will have nowhere left to lean on. And for me, Alicia was the only reason. When Alicia said she wanted to study business administration, I did not hesitate. Tuition was $1,780 per month for 4 years. In total, more than $85,000, an amount far beyond what I had saved. But I still nodded. I worked twice as hard. I turned our small stationery store into a distribution company, signing contracts with schools in the Pasadena and East End areas. I stayed up late preparing bids and price quotes. I turned down every invitation to go out, to travel, turned down even the smallest pleasures. My life was reduced to one thing: Alicia. I was there at her graduation, sitting in the back row, wearing an old navy blue dress. I cried. Partly out of pride, partly from exhaustion, and partly from the sheer relief of feeling like I had finally walked through a storm longer than my youth. 2 years later, Alicia said, "Mom, I need to get an MBA. Everyone at work has an MBA if they want to move up." $42,000. I said, "Then go ahead and study, baby. I'll handle it." And I did. Somehow. When Alicia married Mark, I paid $120,000 for the down payment on the apartment at the Heights. "You don't have to do that, Mom," Alicia said, but her eyes lit up. I hugged her and whispered, "I just want you to start your life without debt." 3 years later, I bought her a car for $68,000, paid in full. I sold all my stocks, emptied my emergency savings, just to see her smile while holding the keys in her hand. And through all those years, not once did Alicia ask me, "Are you okay, Mom? Do you need anything?" I gradually became an invisible provider, a magical ATM spitting out payments for every bill, a shadow always standing behind my daughter so she would never have to fear anything. And no one asked where the money came from, until I stopped. When I finally said no, instead of gratitude, my daughter lined me up next to her mother-in-law, the woman she believed had conquered the world all by herself. But the truth about Serena Ashford, I will tell you later. Only when I laid my own hands on that truth did everything finally become clear. Serena. Just hearing that name makes my chest tighten. Not because I was jealous, at least not at the beginning, but because of that bitter feeling when you are constantly compared to someone who isn't even running the same race as you. The first time I heard about her was 3 months after Alicia started dating Mark. Alicia came home, her eyes shining as if she had just witnessed a miracle. "Mom, today I had lunch at Mark's house. His mom is amazing." The word amazing rang in my head like an alarm bell. Not because I was envious, but because there was something strange in my daughter's voice, a kind of admiration I had never heard when she talked about her own mother. "She has her own cosmetics company, Mom. Natural Beauty. I'm sure you've seen their products in drugstores." Alicia excitedly scrolled through her phone. "Look, this is their office. Isn't it beautiful?" Then she added, her voice full of awe, "And she built all of it after divorcing Mark's dad, completely on her own." Completely on her own. Those words appeared again, like a soft but sharp blade, quietly repeating itself, striking right at my pride. When I met Serena for the first time at the engagement party, I understood why Alicia idolized her so much. Serena walked into the room as if it belonged to her, 64 years old but looking barely 50. Perfect ombre-dyed blonde hair, a designer-fitted dress, the faint trace of expensive perfume, perfectly manicured nails, jewelry that was subtle yet clearly not cheap. Everything about her screamed one single message: I have made it. And me? I was wearing an old navy blue dress, carrying a worn leather bag and flat shoes, because my feet couldn't handle heels anymore after so many years of standing at work. "You must be Pauline." Serena air-kissed both my cheeks, polite but distant, as if she were just following protocol. "Alicia has told me so much about you. It's wonderful to have a mother who's always there." Always there. The way she emphasized it made me feel like that phrase wasn't a compliment, but a gentle, loaded judgment, as if the only thing I was good at was existing next to my daughter. Time passed. The wedding came and went, and Serena slowly took up more and more space in Alicia's life. Weekly lunches, shopping trips, weekend getaways at the beach house in Florida, which I would only later find out actually belonged to Serena's former sister-in-law, not to her. "Mom, Serena invited me to a business expo in Chicago," Alicia said over the phone, her voice excited. "I'll learn so much about starting a business." Starting a business, as if I had never built a business myself, as if turning a failing stationery store into a profitable distribution company didn't count as starting a business. But I just smiled, swallowing every feeling back down. "That's great, honey. You should go." Sometimes I would ask myself, what makes a mother get pushed to the sidelines in her own daughter's life? It's not just money, not just gifts or glamorous stories. It's something far more painful. When someone shows up bright enough, they can make people forget who lit the lamps in their darkest nights. And Serena showed up exactly like that. Everything truly changed after Sam and Sanaa were born. Serena came with extravagant gifts: an imported baby crib worth $4,500, designer baby clothes, educational toys that cost more than my mortgage. And me? I bought diapers, bought medicine, paid health insurance, the kind of ordinary things that are never pretty enough to be photographed for Instagram. Lunches at Serena's house became more and more frequent. Alicia would often come back and tell me, her eyes sparkling, "Mom, you have to see Serena's wine cellar. She's got bottles worth $2,000 each." Or, "She just got back from Paris, stayed at a 5-star hotel overlooking the Eiffel Tower." And tucked inside every story, there was always a quiet streak of comparison. Serena went to Paris. While I stayed in this small city, Serena drank expensive wine, while I drank boxed juice. Serena wore designer clothes, while I was mending my old ones. But the worst part wasn't the money or the gifts. It was the cruelty wrapped in sugar. "Pauline, you work far too hard. Don't you ever take a vacation?" Serena asked at a family lunch, her voice as sweet as honey. "A woman has to know how to take care of herself. I always say, if you don't respect yourself, no one else will." As if I had chosen a hard life, as if I enjoyed never getting a break. Another time, she smiled faintly. "Alicia told me you have a small stationery distribution business. That's adorable. I just love those little family businesses. They have such a charming vibe." Small business, adorable. Each word was like a slow needle piercing my pride. And the worst part was, Alicia never defended me. She laughed along, nodded along, as if she truly believed my life was small, insignificant, and unworthy of respect. Until one dinner at their house, 2 years after Alicia and Mark got married, Serena said something that, thinking back now, I should have understood immediately. "Alicia, the greatest legacy we can leave our children isn't money. It's our example, an example of independence, resilience, and success we created ourselves." Alicia looked at me, just for 1 second. I saw something flash in her eyes. Shame or disappointment? I wasn't sure. But my heart ached, because I had given her everything, my time, my money, my dreams, my entire life. And yet, in her mind, shaped by the influence of that woman, I had never given her the one thing that mattered most: an example. What Alicia didn't know was that Serena's perfect story was nothing more than a mask, glossy on the outside, hollow on the inside. When I discovered the truth, everything finally clicked into place like cruel little puzzle pieces. Her arrogance, her subtle jabs, her constant need to prove herself. None of it was strength. It was the symptom of a terror of being exposed. But at that time, I was still the invisible mother, overshadowed by the artificial light my daughter worshipped. The darkness only began to fade when I became strong enough to flip the switch myself and decided to expose what lay behind the glow Serena had built around her. On Friday morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. It was like I had been lost in the fog for so long that I'd forgotten I was lost, until a strong gust of wind suddenly swept through, blowing away all the haze. And suddenly, the road ahead appeared, sharp and coldly clear. I had barely slept. All night the words from that dinner kept looping in my head. "She's not like you." Alicia's voice echoed like a scratched record, replaying that exact line over and over. But beneath the pain, another feeling surfaced, something I hadn't felt in years. Anger, not the loud, table-slamming, screaming kind of anger, but a cold, razor-sharp anger, the kind that makes you frighteningly focused. I got up at 6, made a cup of black coffee with no sugar, then sat down at the small kitchen table where I had planned my whole life. I opened my old laptop, the one Alicia always made fun of, logged into my bank account. It was time to face the numbers, to face the truth. I took out a notebook and began writing down each expense, each transaction, each automatic payment I had quietly carried for Alicia's family over the years. My fingers trembled, not out of fear, but out of anger. Private school tuition for both grandkids, each child $3,200 a month. Both children, $6,400 a month. Over 4 years, that totaled $307,200. Family health insurance, $2,180 a month. 3 years made $78,480. The apartment loan I had been covering like an endless wedding gift. 80 installments left. Each installment, $2,340, a total of $187,200. The car, $68,000. I had paid that in full 2 years ago. Condo fees at the Heights, $890 a month. I covered 28 months. That came to $24,920. Groceries, around $800 almost every month when they were short. Altogether roughly $25,000. Alicia's gym membership, $240 a month. 3 years made $8,640. Sam's English classes, $580 a month. 3 years made $20,880. Sanaa's ballet lessons, $420 a month. 3 years made $15,120. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the notebook as if it had just revealed an alternate version of my life. In total, I had paid over $735,000, an amount that vanished quietly, as if I were nothing more than a walking ATM. And Alicia didn't even know. "What bills, Mom?" That question echoed again in my head, but this time it didn't hurt. It woke me up. You know, the scariest part wasn't that I had spent too much. It was that I had gotten used to spending without needing anyone to understand. When a mother gives for too long, the family begins to treat it like a law of nature, like the sun must rise, like water must flow, and the day you turn off the tap is the day they realize that will always belong to a person, not to some miracle. I picked up the phone and called the bank. I canceled every automatic payment, canceled every transfer authorization. The bank officer asked me, "Are you sure, ma'am?" "This might be a mistake," I replied, with a calm so steady that it surprised even me. "I'm sure." Not a hint of hesitation. After that, I took a shower. Hot water ran down my back, washing away not just exhaustion, but all those years of silent endurance. When I stepped out, I looked at myself in the foggy mirror. The 68-year-old woman looking back at me had silver hair that I had always found beautiful, even though Alicia kept saying I should dye it. Wrinkles around my eyes etched there by both laughter and secret tears, and calloused, strong hands. I spoke to myself as clearly as if making a vow. I am not invisible. I just allowed people to treat me that way. At 10 in the morning, I met Keisha at our usual cafe near the distribution company. Keisha had been my friend for over 30 years, even from before Dwight died. The moment she saw my face, she burst out laughing. That look, either you just won the lottery or you've made a big decision. I stirred my cappuccino absent-mindedly. A big decision. Then I told Keisha everything, the dinner, Alicia's words, the money I had poured into her family's life, and the fact that I had canceled all of it. Keisha stayed silent for a moment. Then she burst into laughter. "Finally! I thought that daughter of yours was going to drain you dry." I let out a long breath, as if exhaling an entire lifetime. I've been so stupid, Keisha. Stupid for years. She took my hand, her voice slower, firmer. No, you've just been a mother. A mother who gives everything, down to the last drop. But at some point you need to understand, giving everything is not always love. Sometimes it's self-destruction. That sentence went straight through my heart. Self-destruction. Exactly. I had raised a child who didn't understand the value of anything. She believed things simply appeared. She could look down on her own mother because she had never had to fight to hold on to anything. Keisha asked, "So what now?" I took a sip of the bitter coffee. I'm not going to say anything. I want to see how long it takes her to realize the tap has run dry, and I want to see if she runs to her perfect mother-in-law. Keisha raised an eyebrow and smiled, full of mischief. This is going to be good. I nodded. It will. But this time, I'm not the supporting character. Something new was moving inside me. Not bitterness, not revenge, justice. It was time to prove to Alicia, and to myself, that I was not a woman who just exists. I had built a career from nothing, raised my daughter alone, carried her dreams, her tuition, her apartment, her car, her family's future, with my effort, my sweat, and my sacrifices. And now, I would stop. I wanted to see if that castle would still stand when its foundation disappeared. Because there was one thing Alicia didn't understand. She had forgotten who was holding everything together for her. I gave her 3 weeks. 3 weeks until the first bill came due. I would be there. Not with a smug look, but with the belief that sometimes the greatest lesson you can teach someone you love is to let them face the consequences they created. And then, 22 days. Exactly. Before the first explosion hit. I was checking inventory at the company when my phone rang. The name on the screen, Alicia. My heart lurched, the kind of reflex only a mother has when she sees her child's name light up her phone. I took a deep breath and picked up. Mom, something's wrong. What is it? The school called. They said the kids' tuition is 3 weeks overdue and there are late fees. Didn't you set up the automatic payments? In her mind, everything still had to be automatic, as if money also appeared automatically. I did, I said, my eyes still flipping through the inventory ledger, but I canceled them. Silence on the other end. You canceled? Why didn't you tell me? I put my pen down. My voice came out colder than even I expected. Just like you compared me to your mother-in-law without telling me first. Mom, please, this is about the kids. They'll be embarrassed if their names are posted on the tuition debt board. My heart tightened at the thought of Sam, the bookish one, and Sanaa, my little artist who always loved showing off her colorful drawings. For a second, I almost caved. But then I remembered Alicia's mocking smile, remembered the years I had been treated as invisible. I spoke slowly, each word clear. Alicia, you're 45 years old. You have a bachelor's degree, a husband, and 2 teenage kids. Tuition is $3,200 per child. You and Mark can't manage $6,400 a month for your own children? You know we're tight on money, Mom. Mark still owes his mom on the car loan. I froze. His mom? You mean Serena? Yes, Serena. She loaned us the money for the car. With interest, I assume? Alicia hesitated. 5% a month. She said it's to teach us financial responsibility. A bitter, dry laugh escaped me. And what about the tuition? The insurance, the apartment, the car, the gym? Who do you think has been paying for all that? Me. And I have never charged a single cent of interest. I never even asked for a word of thanks. On the other end, Alicia started crying. Mom, please don't do this. If we don't pay, the school will hold the kids' records. I closed my eyes, not to soften, but to keep my voice from shaking. From now on, you're going to do what a grown woman is supposed to do. Sit down with your husband, go through your expenses, cut what needs to be cut, and pay your own bills. Or go ask your perfect mother-in-law. Serena won't what? I cut in. Nothing. Forget it. But I did not forget. There was a strange moment in that call. I realized Alicia wasn't just panicking about late tuition. She was panicking because for the first time in her life, she had hit a wall without me standing behind it as a cushion. And in that exact moment, I understood. If I gave in now, I would only continue feeding the ingratitude I myself had accidentally nurtured for 20 years. There was a strange urgency in Alicia's voice, like someone trying to hide something. I asked her directly, "How many times have you borrowed from her?" "That's not relevant, Mom." "It is. How many times?" After a few seconds of silence, Alicia sighed. "Twice. Once to fix the kitchen, once to buy the fridge. And she lent you the money with interest, 5% a month, and you're still paying it back. 6 more months, $10,000 a month." My chest tightened. $60,000 owed to her mother-in-law, while I had paid for almost everything for her family without ever asking for anything back. I said, my voice steady to the point of being icy, "Then you know what to do, Alicia. Call Serena. Borrow more. Learn the financial responsibility she keeps preaching." "Mom, please." Her voice was shaking. I said nothing more. I hung up. I rested my forehead on my desk, trying to breathe as if I were pushing through an underwater current. Pain, anger, relief, and guilt. All of it churned together in my chest. My phone buzzed. A text from Alicia. "Mom, we need to talk. We can't leave things like this." I didn't reply. That night, Keisha called. "So, has she figured it out yet?" "Yes." "Are you okay?" I looked out the window. Outside, life went on, as if nobody was falling apart. Kids laughing, cars passing by, the world unaware of the quiet storm inside me. "I'm okay," I said. "I'm tired, sore, but my mind feels lighter, because I finally put down a burden that should never have been mine in the first place." Keisha was quiet for a beat, then spoke slowly. "Sometimes we love so much that we forget to teach, and teaching hurts both the teacher and the student, but it's necessary." I closed my eyes. She was right. Alicia had to fall before she could learn how to stand. I didn't expect everything to unfold so soon. Just 2 days later, Keisha's cousin, who works as a waitress at an upscale restaurant in downtown Houston, texted me, "Pauline, your daughter is here with the blonde woman in the picture you sent. They look very serious." My stomach twisted. Alicia had gone to Serena, exactly as I'd predicted. I texted back immediately, "Can you hear what they're saying?" "I'll try." I stared at my phone for 20 minutes that felt like a century. Then her long message came through. According to Nora, Keisha's cousin, who has ears sharp as a bat, Alicia arrived tense. She ordered a glass of wine, something she only did when she was desperate. Serena appeared as flawless as ever. Hair perfectly styled, sunglasses perched atop her head, manicure immaculate, her fingers tapping lightly against her glass of Chardonnay like it was the rhythm of power. The conversation started with harmless topics. The kids, Mark's job, a few filler stories. Then Alicia finally mustered the courage. "Serena, I need your help," she said, her voice trembling. "Of course, darling. What is it?" Serena smiled, the cold smile of someone who already knows what's coming. "My mom cut all the financial support she used to send us without warning. Now we're drowning in bills. The kids' tuition, credit cards, Mark's car loan, about $8,400. I need the money before Friday." Alicia twisted her napkin between her fingers. Her desperation now had a number attached to it. Serena slowly took a sip of wine, savoring not the flavor, but the moment of being begged. "I understand," she said sweetly, so sweet it was chilling. "But Alicia, don't you think it's time you and Mark learned to live within your own income? You and your husband are both adults." Those words were almost identical to what I had said, but coming from Serena's mouth, they turned into tiny blades, thin, sharp, and dripping with contempt. I know, it's just a tough period. Once Mark gets his promotion—" "Alicia!" Serena cut in, setting her glass down with a crisp clink. "Your mother has spoiled you too much, and now you're paying the price." When I read that part of Nora's message, I had to sit down. My eyes burned. I had spoiled her too much. I had destroyed my own daughter. But I also knew that sometimes the truth isn't there to punish you. It's there to wake you up. "But you can help me, right? You always say family is everything," Alicia said. "Yes, family is everything." Serena motioned for the waiter to refill her wine. "But real help is not giving money. It's teaching responsibility." Nora said Alicia's face fell. Her eyes welled up. Her hands trembled. "Serena, please. It's only $8,400. I promise I'll pay it back." A long, suffocating silence. Serena picked up her Prada bag from the chair beside her, pulled out her phone, tapped a few times. Seconds that must have felt like hours to Alicia. "All right," she sighed, like she was undertaking some grand act of charity. "I'll transfer $2,000 right now. That's all I can do. I have my own obligations too. You understand?" $2,000, when Alicia needed $8,400, only that. "And the rest?" Alicia's voice was barely a whisper now. "Darling, I have bills, investments. I need that money back in 30 days, plus the usual adjustment." Alicia went pale. 5% interest. "Exactly. Standard rate, sweetheart. In 30 days, you'll pay me back $2,100. All right?" I had given my daughter hundreds of thousands without ever charging a penny of interest. Meanwhile, that woman lent her $2,000 and demanded an extra $100. I'll try," Alicia said, her voice choking. According to Nora, they stayed another 20 minutes. Serena went on and on about building everything from nothing, about independence, about how the world doesn't give anyone anything for free. Every word stabbed at my daughter's pride. Every sentence was a calculated blow meant to push her under. "Your mother shielded you too much from reality. Now you're learning the lesson the hard way," Serena concluded. She paid the $340 bill, just for wine and appetizers, with a gold credit card. "But one day, you'll see this is good for you," she added, her tone sugary and poisonous. When Nora finished telling me everything, I sat frozen on the couch for nearly an hour. Alicia, my daughter, had gone begging to that woman, been humiliated, and walked away with $2,000 plus interest. I had given everything, asking for nothing but love. Yet Serena still stood elevated like some symbol of strength. But there was something about her excuses that bothered me. Serena claimed her company was restructuring, investing, a conveniently vague reason for not opening her wallet any wider. I called Keisha. "Keisha, you still know Morris, the accountant who works with cosmetics companies, right?" "Yes. Why?" "I need you to ask him for me. About Serena." I quickly explained. A woman who flaunts wealth and success but can only lend $2,000 while charging interest like a loan shark. Something was off. Keisha laughed into the phone. "Pauline, what are you plotting?" "Nothing dramatic," I said, looking out the window as the sunset washed the buildings in gold. "I just want to know who the woman my daughter worships really is." I had a hunch, and if that hunch was right, everything was about to change. I told myself I just wanted to know. But the more I thought about it, the more my skin crawled with one simple question. If Serena truly built everything with her own hands, why does she need to squeeze interest out of her own son? People can look flashy because of status, or because of desperation. And I was starting to suspect Serena belonged to the latter. 2 days later, Keisha called back. Her voice was noticeably lower. "Pauline, sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to shock you. Serena Ashford is a fraud, a perfectly crafted illusion." I almost dropped my coffee cup. I was sitting on the old wooden chair on my porch. The afternoon sun was still warm, but a chill ran straight down my spine. "Start from the beginning." Keisha took a deep breath. "Morris showed me the files. I also talked to 3 suppliers that work with natural beauty. That company is drowning in debt, nearly $890,000, close to $1 million. I froze. How can a company that sells products in every drugstore end up like that? Terrible management, Morris said, according to Keisha. Serena didn't build anything. She inherited everything from her father, Lionel Ashford, owner of 3 cosmetics factories. He died in 2003 and left it all to his only daughter. I remembered that name. I had seen that old plaque in Serena's office, Lionel Ashford Industries, Estam 1978. But I'd never really paid attention. And then she burned through the entire fortune, Keisha went on. In 2019, Serena opened 3 luxury stores in major malls. Renovation, interiors, staff, hundreds of thousands in expenses. But revenue was only half of what they projected. I nodded slightly, already seeing where this was going. Let me guess. She shut them all down. Exactly. In 2022, all 3 stores closed. She was buried in supplier debt and bank loans. Now she's just borrowing new money to pay old debts. I opened my notebook and wrote everything down with a cold, sharp clarity. And the fancy apartment she lives in? Rented. $3,800 a month. And she's 2 months behind, according to one of Nora's friends in real estate. Rented. I sat there stunned. The luxury car still has a $78,000 balance. The designer clothes and jewelry, all on installments. 4 credit cards completely maxed out, revolving debt around $120,000. I stared into space. The image of the perfect woman my daughter worshipped crumbled in my mind like a sandcastle hit by the tide. And the beach house she keeps bragging about? Not hers. It belongs to her former sister-in-law. Serena borrows it whenever the woman is away, then posts photos on Instagram like it's her own. Each piece clicked into place. Now I understood why she charged interest to her own son, why she could only lend Alicia $2,000, why there was always a thin thread of tension beneath all that glamour. I asked, Keisha, can you print everything out for me? Documents, articles, statements, all of it. Already emailed. There's an article from Economic Journal about her store closures, plus supplier lawsuits. I checked my phone and saw 15 files. I read each one like I was assembling a classified dossier. One article from 2022 was titled, Natural Beauty Closes 3 Luxury Stores After $1.2 million Loss. The photo showed Serena standing in front of the store, forcing a confident smile. Another file was a lawsuit from a supplier demanding $240,000 in unpaid raw materials. There were even complaints from employees about late wages. Keisha asked quietly, Pauline, you still there? I'm here, just processing. What are you going to do? That question made me pause. My first reaction was anger. Anger at the woman who had poisoned my daughter's mind. Anger at the sweet words that were actually needles. But then another thought came, colder and more precise. I'm going to hold on to it, I said. For now. Hold on to it for what? Because this information is valuable, and I'll use it when the time is right. Keisha chuckled softly. Pauline, are you plotting something again? I don't know if you'd call it plotting. I just know it's time for the truth to be seen. Alicia needs to know who the woman she worships really is. That afternoon, I organized everything into a folder. I divided it clearly into sections: debts, lawsuits, lies, the fake facade. Each page was a piece of evidence, each number a crack in that glossy mask. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. Serena had built an entire illusion. The self-made businesswoman, the perfect mother-in-law, the icon of independence. And my daughter had believed it completely. But I wasn't doing this just to soothe my hurt. I was doing it for the truth. Because I wanted Alicia to understand that the light she'd been chasing was just stage lighting. I wanted her to see that I, the woman she had once looked down on, am the one who actually built something real with my sweat, my honor, and my own 2 hands. The next morning, Alicia texted, Mom, I managed to pull together half the tuition. Serena is lending me the rest, and I'll pay her back slowly. The kids won't have to be embarrassed. I read that message 3 times. Serena lending, as if it were some great act of grace. $2,000 at 5% interest. I didn't reply. I just saved the message, as one more puzzle piece for the picture that was nearly complete, because I had made up my mind. Very soon I would invite everyone over for dinner. Alicia, Mark, Sam, Sanaa, and Serena Ashford. A dinner where truth would be the main course, where masks would fall under the weight of numbers, documents, and facts that cannot be denied. And I, the mother who had once been treated as invisible, would finally show them my true worth, not by shouting, not by rage, but by turning on the light of truth. Because sometimes the deepest revenge isn't noise. It's flipping on the switch in a dark room and making everyone stare at the things they've pretended not to see for years. 63 days after that fateful evening, on a Saturday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen, baking cornbread using my mother's old recipe, the kind with a faint hint of anise. The sweet, warm smell filled the house, comforting like a reheated memory. I wiped my hands on my apron, walking out while thinking it was probably Keisha bringing the fern pots she'd promised me yesterday. But when I opened the door, Alicia was standing there. She looked nothing like the woman who always appeared put together, confident, and a little arrogant, the daughter I was used to seeing. Her hair was hastily tied back, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. Her linen shirt was wrinkled, like she had slept in it, or had been awake too many nights in a row, and in her hands was a bouquet of roses wrapped in tissue paper, tied with a golden ribbon. The expensive kind that I knew, in her current situation, she could not really afford. "Hi, Mom." Her voice was as small as a whisper. I stood right there in the doorway, not inviting her in immediately. My heart clenched, the reflex of any mother, but my mind stayed cold, clear. "Mom, can I come in?" I stepped aside. Alicia walked in slowly, looking around the house as if this were some unfamiliar land. Strange, really. How many times had she been here in the past few years? 5, 6 times. And every time, she was in a rush. "Hi, Mom. I'm just here to grab a few things. I have to go. See you next week." Next week never came. "Sit down," I said, pointing to the sofa. "Coffee?" "No, thank you, Mom." She sat on the edge of the couch, clutching the bouquet like a life preserver. "I brought you flowers." I took the bouquet. Beautiful. Expensive. Probably around $180. I set it on the table without looking for a vase. "What do you need?" She seemed out of breath. "Mom, please sit down with me." I sat across from her, arms folded, and waited. Alicia took a deep breath, looked at the floor, then the ceiling, then her own hands, avoiding my eyes. There are moments when you do not need someone to say a single word to know there is a storm right behind their eyes. Alicia had not yet spoken an apology, but the way she held the bouquet too tightly, the way she sat as if afraid of taking up space in my house, and especially that bone-deep exhaustion she could not disguise, all told me one clear truth. For the past 3 months, it was not just money she had been short of. She was running short of anything her pride could lean on. "I came to apologize for that night." Her voice broke into pieces. "I said things I shouldn't have said. I was just tired. I didn't mean them." "No," I said coldly. "You said exactly what you meant. People only slip when they are tired of pretending, not when they are lying." She looked up. Her eyes were already wet. "It's not like that, Mom. I was just influenced. Serena talks so much about how she built everything by herself, and I believed her." "You believed her? Then you compared me to her." I looked straight at her. "You decided I was inferior, didn't you?" "No, that's not—" "Yes, it is, Alicia." I leaned forward. "You laughed in my face, in front of your husband, in front of your children. You said I had accomplished nothing, that I merely existed." A tear rolled down her cheek. "I know I was wrong. I'm sorry." Silence. The clock ticked steadily, as if counting for me the years I had given without being seen. Then I asked slowly, Why are you really here, Alicia? Because you're my mother. How much do you owe? She froze. The words stuck in her throat. I asked again, how much do you owe? Her shoulders slumped. About $27,000. In the last 2 months. Details. Mom, is that necessary? Yes. She unlocked her phone with trembling fingers and handed it to me. The screen was full of red numbers. Tuition, $6,400, 2 months late. Credit cards, $4,830, only minimum payments made. Car loan, $3,700, 2 installments overdue. Apartment fees, $1,780, 2 months late. Supermarket, $2,190 owed on the store card. And one more line. Serena Ashford, $2,100. I pointed at it. What's this? The money I borrowed from her. $2,000 principal, $100 interest due next week. Serena disappointed you, didn't she? I said, not as a question. She said nothing, but her eyes said everything. You went to beg her, got humiliated, and walked away with scraps. She even charged you 5% interest as if you were an investment. Mom, she said her company is going through a tough time, restructuring. You know she uses that excuse on everyone. I walked into the kitchen and turned off the oven. The bread was done. I set it aside to cool, then came back. Alicia, I said, are you here to ask for money? She lowered her head. I came to apologize, and yes, I need help. Her voice was tightening. Mom, the school is about to freeze the kids' records. Sam is so embarrassed he doesn't want to go because his friends asked why he missed the field trip. Sana had to stop ballet because I couldn't pay. My chest tightened. Thinking of those 2 children made my heart ache. But I knew that if I gave in now, I would walk right back into the cycle that had ruined both me and her. What do you want me to do? Help me. Just this once. I promise. Promise what? My own voice sounded calm to the point of being icy. That you will respect me? That you will be grateful? That you will stop comparing me to someone else? Or just until the next time you forget? Mom, I'm not like that. You are exactly like that. My voice trembled for the first time in this conversation. You only remember me when you need something. I looked her straight in the face. When was the last time you called just to ask if I was okay, not to ask for money? She said nothing. Answer me, Alicia. When? I don't remember. Exactly. I nodded. Because it has been too long. I stood up. You are 45. You have an MBA. You have a job. You have a husband. Both of you make good money, and yet you do not know how to manage it. I looked at her, slowly but firmly. You think it was easier for me? I was 35, widowed, with a 12-year-old child, and a shop drowning in debt. Mom, I know. No. I cut her off. You don't know. You have never known how many nights I stayed up calculating bills, how many times I gave up small joys just so you could stay in school. How many opportunities, trips, friendships I sacrificed just so you could have what others had. Mom, please stop. I raised my hand. You said Serena built everything with her own hands, and I did not. I took a deep breath. So now, Alicia, you can build on your own. Her sobs filled the room. You want me out on the street? You want my children to suffer? I turned to look at her. No. I want you to grow up. Grow up how? To understand that nothing falls from the sky. That respect has to be earned. That dignity is not in a fancy apartment or a new car, but in your character. I spoke slowly, clearly, in knowing who is truly standing by your side. She was quiet for a while, then grabbed her bag. So that's it? You won't help me? That's right, I said. You'll handle it yourself. If the school holds their records, you'll figure it out. If Sana can't go back to ballet, you'll recalculate. If Sam gets teased, you'll be there for your kids the way a grown mother should be. She jumped to her feet, walked to the door, hand gripping the knob. Fine. Her voice was hoarse. You've changed. "No," I said softly. "I've just stopped being invisible." Then she left. The door slammed. My house fell quiet again. But this time, that silence was no longer cold. It was the silence of someone who has finally put down a burden that never belonged on her shoulders, and who still loves enough to give her child a chance to learn to stand on her own 2 feet. 3.5 months after that painful night, I knew I was ready. I spent the whole week cleaning the house. I took out the beige linen tablecloth, the one I always saved for truly special occasions. I went to the market and chose the freshest ingredients: filet mignon, potatoes, asparagus, and the chocolate cake my grandkids love. In total, $340. Money I had earned myself, paid myself, and felt at peace about, because this time I wasn't doing it to prove anything to anyone. I was doing it simply because I wanted to. On Thursday afternoon, I sent a message in the family group chat. "Hi everyone, I'm inviting all of you to dinner at my house in Pearland this Saturday at 7 p.m. Alicia, Mark, Sam, Sanaa, and Serena as well. I have something important to say." Alicia replied almost immediately, "Mom, why are you inviting Serena?" I simply texted back, "You'll understand that night." Serena took 2 hours to reply. Honored to attend. Honored. She had no idea what was waiting for her. On Saturday morning, I woke up at 6. I showered, put on black slacks and a white silk blouse. I stood in front of the mirror, looking at a 68-year-old woman with silver hair and wrinkles around her eyes. But what I noticed most wasn't my age. It was my eyes. They were stronger than ever. Today is the end, I told my reflection, and also the beginning. Mark and the kids arrived first. Sam had grown taller, and Sanaa had a new haircut. "Grandma, it smells so good!" I hugged my grandchildren tightly. My heart softened a little, like someone had just put back a missing puzzle piece in the right place. Alicia came next. She was tense, hovering near the sofa as if she was ready to bolt at any second. At 7:15, Serena walked in. Royal blue dress, high heels, overpowering perfume. "Pauline, your home is so cozy, so simple, so charming." I smiled faintly. "Please have a seat. Dinner is ready." We ate in silence for about 20 minutes. The kids talked about school. Mark talked about work. Serena rambled about a business trip to Colorado in that tone people use when they want the whole room to revolve around them. And me? I just waited. There is a very particular kind of stillness right before the truth is laid on the table. It isn't loud. It isn't dramatic like a shouting match. It feels more like hearing the ticking of a clock so clearly you'd swear it was knocking directly against your ribs. I looked at Alicia, at Mark, at my grandkids, happily chewing their food. And I knew, if I didn't speak tonight, the distance between us would no longer be a misunderstanding. It would harden into a habit. I did not want my family to live one more day inside that cold habit. When dessert was served, I stood up. "Mark, could you grab the envelope on the shelf for me?" He got up and brought back a large brown envelope. I placed it in the middle of the table. Alicia swallowed hard. "What is that, Mom?" Her voice was shaky. "The truth." I opened the envelope and took out the papers. "These are records of everything I have paid for you over the last 20 years. I spread the documents across the table. Undergraduate degree, $85,000. MBA, $42,000. Apartment down payment, $120,000. Car, $68,000. Tuition, insurance, living expenses over the years, $735,000. In total, about $1,050,000. Alicia's face drained of color. Tears fell instantly, as if every excuse she had ever prepared had just been strangled by the numbers. "Mom, I didn't know." "You didn't know because you never asked." I turned to Serena and pulled out another stack of papers. And here is the fun part. I heard her chair scrape softly against the floor. "For years, you claimed you built everything by yourself. But the truth is, you inherited it from your father, Lionel Ashford." Serena's face went rigid. "And you managed it terribly." I laid each sheet down like a stone. These are lawsuits. Natural beauty is drowning in nearly $890,000 of debt. Almost $1 million. 3 stores closed with a loss of $1.2 million. The River Oaks apartment is a rental, $3,800 a month, and you are 2 months behind. The luxury car still has a $78,000 balance. Designer clothes and jewelry on payment plans, revolving credit card debt of over $120,000. Serena shot to her feet. "You have no right." "I do," I cut in, my voice so calm even I was surprised. "When you use lies to step on other people. When you poison my daughter's mind until she is ashamed of her own mother." I looked around the table, one person at a time. "I did not inherit anything. I do not owe anyone a cent. Every dollar I have, I earned myself. And that, Serena, is something you can never say." Serena grabbed her purse. Her hands were shaking. "I am not staying here to listen to this." "That is your right." She stormed out, slamming the door. The silence that followed was suffocating. "Grandma," Sana's voice trembled. "You paid for everything? For us?" I knelt down in front of her. "Yes, sweetheart, because I love you." I looked at Sam, then at Alicia. But there is a difference between giving out of love and allowing people to treat you as invisible. Sam blinked. "So Serena lied about everything?" Mark let out a heavy sigh. "Yes, son, she lied." He turned to me, his voice softer. "Mrs. Pauline, I had no idea. I thought my mother was perfect." "I know," I said. "She built herself an image that looked perfect." Alicia collapsed, then fell to her knees in front of me. "Mom, I've been so selfish. I'm sorry." I put my hand on her cheek. "I spoiled you. I taught you the wrong lesson, that you didn't have to fight for anything." I shook my head gently. "I don't want your money. I want you to grow up." Mark spoke up immediately. "We promise we'll cut our expenses, live within our means." I took out one more sheet of paper and placed it in front of Alicia. "And there is one more thing. This is an employment contract." She looked up. "I want you to work for me, $4,800 a month. You will learn how to run a real business." Alicia looked like she couldn't believe her ears. "Mom, I'll do it." "Monday, 7:30 a.m. Mark laughed, quietly but genuinely. I've never seen Alicia wake up that early. I laughed too. Well, her husband is about to. We talked late into the night. Alicia went into the kitchen to do the dishes, something she hadn't done in years. Mark fixed a wobbly chair. The kids showed me their report cards and talked about their dreams. Little by little, my family began to knit itself back together. Not in a flashy way, not with expensive gifts or empty promises, but with small acts, real ones, warm ones. They left close to midnight. Alicia was the last to stand at the door. "Mom, today you taught me the biggest lesson. Dignity cannot be bought. It has to be built. And the strongest woman I know was always right here. I just refused to see her." When the door closed, I sat on the sofa. The house was quiet, but it was the quiet of peace. My phone buzzed. Keisha texted, "How did it go?" I replied, "It ended," and began. 6 months later, Alicia burst into my office at the distribution company, out of breath from running too fast. "Mom, I just signed a supply contract with the public school district, $115,000. Pride swelled in me, not so much because of the amount, but because I was looking at a woman standing on her own 2 feet. "I knew you could do it." She hugged me right there in the middle of the warehouse. A year and a half later, I woke up on a Saturday morning with a sense of peace I had never dared to dream of before. Alicia showed up with a bag of bread. "Hi, Mom." She kissed my forehead like she used to when she was little. "This month we managed to save $800. We only have $2,100 left to pay off. We'll finish in March." She hesitated for a beat, then continued, "Mark and I want to send you $200 every month after that." "Not because of the money. We want to prove we've changed." My eyes stung. We hugged on the porch. Mark and the kids arrived afterward. Sam pulled out a certificate, his voice full of pride. "I won second place in the writing contest. I wrote about you." I read it. "Grandma taught me that strength is getting back up every time you fall. She built her business alone, raised my mom, and never lost her dignity. Heroes do not always wear capes. Sometimes they wear aprons, have silver hair, and calloused hands. Grandma is my hero." I couldn't finish reading. I pulled Sam into my arms. Mark spoke, his voice low and firm. "I cut ties with my mother. After that dinner, I tried to talk to her, but she stayed the same, spending, pretending, even charging me interest. I realized real family is respect and support, like you showed, even after Alicia hurt you." Sana chimed in, innocent but painfully accurate. "Miss Serena gave expensive presents, but never asked what we liked. Presents can't replace love." That afternoon, we had lunch together, played Monopoly, and laughed like it had been a very long time since our family truly breathed in sync. When they left, the sun was setting. I stood waving until the car disappeared from sight. Then I opened my old notebook and wrote one last line. "They once thought I was invisible, but I am the foundation." And when the foundation shifts, everything collapses, not to destroy, but to rebuild. Stronger, truer, more worthy. Life still has bills, still has worries, still has old scars, but now I have something more precious: respect, understanding, and love proven through action. My company grows. Alicia becomes an excellent sales director. My hair is still silver, my hands are still calloused, my house is still modest, but now no one in my family dares to call my life just existing anymore. That night, Alicia texted, "Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for teaching me, even when it hurt. Thank you for being the strongest woman I know. I love you." I replied, "I love you too." Then I slept a peaceful sleep. Looking back, I realized that sometimes we spend our whole lives searching for love from others, forgetting that how we treat ourselves and the people closest to us is what truly defines our worth. Family is not perfect, but it is where we learn how to be wrong, how to fix it, how to forgive, and how to begin again. It took me many years to understand. Love is not enduring everything. Strength is not being hard forever. Real strength is saying enough when you need to, and still keeping your kindness. And you? Have you ever had to stand up after being hurt by the person closest to you? What did you learn from that moment? Share your story in the comments. Maybe just one line from you will warm someone who needs a reason to keep going. And if you want to hear more stories about family, gratitude, resilience, and the most beautiful comebacks in a lifetime, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next video. We'll see each other again in another story, another lesson, and another round of healing, slow, warm, and truly deserved.